This is a demonstration of the look, sound, and use of the simple sound waves. There are 5 types of sound waves that I consider to be simple: square waves, sawtooth waves, triangle waves, sine waves, and noise. There are also absolute value sine, half sine, and partial sine. But as these are all derived from the sine wave, I will be ignoring them for now. Let's go back to the square wave. This is the simplest of the simple sound waves. Due to the square wave's abundant sharp edges, or jaggies, the square wave generates a good deal of overtones when played. This is because although this is supposed to be a graph of the motion of the plunger in your speakers, it's not possible for speakers to actually move this fast, and so they use a Fourier series to get pretty close. See these high-frequency oscillations? It's these that cause the high-frequency overtones when square waves are played, making square waves an interesting sounding sound wave despite their simplicity. In case you're curious, here's what happens when we start to filter out the high frequencies that square waves generate. Next is the sawtooth wave. Note that the sawtooth wave also has jaggies, but not as many as the square wave, giving it a slightly different sound. Next is the triangle wave. Sounds a bit like a flute to me. The triangle wave has almost no jaggies, although these sharp corners do technically count. They make some overtones, but nowhere near as many as the square wave or sawtooth wave. Note that a low-pitched wub of triangle waves can be used to sound like a bass drum hit. Next is the sine wave. Note the sine wave's complete lack of jaggies. Since the Fourier series I mentioned before uses sinusoidal waves to approximate digital sound, and the sine wave is already perfectly sinusoidal, the sine wave is completely overtone-free. In other words, the sine wave is really good at generating exactly one note, staying on one exact frequency. If you add a bit of reverb, the sine wave can sound somewhat like bells or a xylophone. Lastly, we have noise. The noise wave looks somewhat similar to the square wave, except that its frequency is continuously changing randomly. However, noise waves do still adhere to a relative frequency. Here is a series of noise wave notes increasing in frequency. Back in the days of the NES and the Game Boy, noise waves would be used for percussion. Here's a demonstration of music creation using only the simple sound waves. case you're wondering, the software I'm using to generate these sounds is called SunVox. In addition to being based upon the simple sound waves, SunVox also offers a whole array of different filters and effects that can be applied to sounds, allowing for even more complex synths and more interesting music. I'd like to illustrate this first by applying some effects to one of the simple sound waves to try to mimic a real-life instrument. Here's what happens when we take a sawtooth wave add some vibrato, add a little more vibrato, I know it is hard to tell, filter out some higher frequencies, and then add some reverb. Here's a demonstration of music creation using the simple sound waves as a basis, but applying some effects here and there.